Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Datascape Digital AI Workforce Podcast. You didn't think I could get that one out. My name is Jason Asher, along with Raji Abraham and Ryan Albrechtson. So, welcome, everybody. Welcome. So today we're going to be talking about how to be empathetic in this new era of AI, and we're living through a tremendously interesting time in the course of human history. And, before the podcast started, we were kind of talking through the historical context of it. And, so in today's podcast, we're talking about like how we went from the Renaissance era to the spinning jenny that Ludwig Wittgenstein would talk about, but into the modern era of IBM and other companies, and how every shift to transition in how humans work always came with a significant amount of anxiety. And a significant amount of worry. However, what we're going to do here is kind of break down what happened in the past. We're going to talk about, the new workplace dynamics. We're going to talk about a cultural shift. And then we're going to end with, what does the road ahead look like? And I think that we have some real great stuff with you today. So to set the scene, when we look at the Renaissance, and we go from the Renaissance almost to the era of the Industrial Revolution, we see that the jobs people had changed a lot, right? From people that dug wells to people who, made aqueducts to the Industrial Revolution, where you had, the German philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein waxing poetic about the spinning jenny. The first time fabric was actually machine produced, and you had this machine now that would weave yarn together. So Wittgenstein didn't really signal the end of an era for him. What Wittgenstein said was, well, it's like weaving together all the aspects of one's life into the fabric of tomorrow, or something to that effect. And while everybody's running around like a chicken without a head, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? The philosophers at the time, even Descartes, were really getting into math and science, and then seeing how this transitionary period, could lead to even greater, human productivity and human thought. So with that, Jason, I get into our first topic of the dynamics of the new workplace.
Of course I'm stressed out, Jason. Robots are taking our jobs, right? What are we supposed to do?
I mean, look at what's growing out of your ear. I mean, we don't even know if you're human or you're a robot yourself. I mean, we're going to see a Tesla logo come up with like the Tesla robots, right?
Yeah.
All right, so Raji, we're very curious, I think, to know your insights here on the new workplace dynamic, given that historical context, and where, you've been through a lot in your career, having seen the transition of computing from mainframes to desktops to mobile devices to AI now. And we'd love to hear some thoughts on what your take is on this. Right?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Really, if you look at the news that is there, pretty much there is information mention about how people are losing jobs. Yesterday or 2 days ago, one of the big tech companies said, hey, I got rid of so many people because I don't need so many. The US job market is showing that there is, less and less opportunities out there. So this is something, really, everybody's having the challenge there, right? So my perspective is like this. First, we need to understand mental models. Almost like 5 years ago, I had written a blog about mental models. If you go to my website, it gives more details. I won't go into the depth of it, but essentially what it is we all understand the world based on a model that we create in our mind, right? And, our five senses and our thoughts, everything creates a mental model. And we are constantly adjusting those mental models, right? Way back when, if we remember how we studied chemistry, there was this periodic table where the scientists were trying to figure out how are these chemicals related. So they created a mental model. And over the time, as chemistry evolved, physics evolved, now we know, okay, how these atoms and others are working, right? But the important thing is every one of those mental models keeps changing, right? We are at a stage where we had a mental model about, okay, we go to school, we study, we get a job, and that job will last for a long time. When internet came, well, people no longer work 30, 40 years in a company. They kept changing. Now we are again at a crux of where things are, right? One of the things, I recently, when I look at AI used in some of these places, one of the things that I observe is some of the leaders do not use AI in the right place, right? They are experimenting, but it has effects on other people. Recently, there was a colleague of mine mentioned that she had applied for a job and this was this AI doing the screening. Some parts of it she liked. Some part of it, she said, well, I don't like it. So I commented saying, when organizational leaders do not use AI in the right way, right, there is the good, the bad, and the ugly, right, then it's an indication that maybe that leader doesn't understand the right use of AI. And I just left it there, but few people commented saying that AI is evolving, so it'll be better. And I'm going to say, no, stop. Right? There's a difference between the right and wrong use. It has nothing to do with whether AI is matured or not. And the example I gave was, when you're driving, being on the lane that you're supposed to is the good. If you keep switching between one lane and the other, that is bad.
Unless you're on the Van Wyck going to JFK, it's
And if you drive on the completely other lane, that is ugly. Right? And that has nothing to do with whether you have a cool car and a best car out there. It's staying in the lane, right? That is what I meant by saying in the good, bad, and the ugly, right? There is another interesting thing. Go ahead, Ryan. You had a thought.
How do we know, Raji, as leaders, we're trying to do things that are right, and we're leveraging AI because everyone else is, and we want to feel like we want to be part of the party, right? How do we know if we're leveraging it correctly or not?
It's actually, so I would, this is where my philosophical thought process comes into mind, okay? Yeah. Is that, really when you look at it, there is this thought that will AI replace human, right? And the answer I give is absolutely not. And here is the reason why. There is some stuff about human beings that we don't seem to be appreciating, right? We think that intelligence is about smart decisions and, logical doing stuff. Really, if I go back to my previous, 2-3 weeks ago, I put out an article about the two minds that we have, right? There I mentioned about there is a slave worker mind and there is a executive mind. I'm going to change it a little bit to the context of the AI, which is there is a compulsive mind and there is a conscious mind, right? We as human beings, we have the ability to express and exercise the conscious side. Animals don't have that. I'm not saying animals may not have consciousness. They don't exercise. The way I look at it is AI works great in the compulsive world, right? It doesn't work in the conscious world. At least in the next few years. I don't know how it will be 100 years from now, but it will not. So when you are applying AI, areas that are supposed to be of the consciousness, it's a wrong use of AI. Right? That's where the topic of empathy comes in, right? Empathy, having a connection with humans, even let's say if you're doing customer service, right? Those areas which are on the compulsive side, seeing action, reaction, transactions, AI is great. But the point where you have to have an empathy, that's a human side. You don't want AI coming into place. Right. To me, that is the highest level you can consider. And as long as you understand that as humans, we have that consciousness, because consciousness is something integral to the whole universe, right? And that is something nobody will take from you.
So Raji, if there are directors, vice presidents, executive vice presidents, C-levels watching right now, what would be an applicable, strategic move that they can make with AI for their organizations to remove the association with AI consciousness and associate AI, kind of more with the action transaction, research, area that you focused on. What advice would you give an executive that wants to figure out, hey, what do I do with AI now? Like I got X license for all of my employees. I gave them no directives as to what to do. I told them use AI during the day, and they're like, hey, that's cool. What could come from the CEO's office that would help employees kind of understand, ground it, and remove it from this kind of dark area not seeping into conscious behaviors.
So I would say, pretty much like any new technology, right? Start slow, right? I would think, the first few areas that you should look at is those areas where you can automate repetitive manual tasks, right? Get the people out of those and let them focus on other areas where you can bring value. That would be the first level, right? Once you understand strengths and weaknesses of the AI models or tools that you're using, then you can get to the next level. So I would say a lot of organizations struggle just in that initial stage of automating because you need real good data, quality data, accuracy of everything, right? If you're able to do that, that itself is a huge win. Next, when you look at AI can bring you better values, it requires a lot more understanding of your relationship between where you're bringing value and how much of AI with the current models, and of course, next year it'll be something different, is going to bring those values together. So that's the way I would look at it. Take it slow.
Now, looking at those values and kind of shifting our narrative now, more to a cultural shift, no pun intended. And we're looking at the kind of like renaissance of the human potential. I think you touched on a nerve there when you mentioned that the executives in the room need to be able to have the consciousness that, look, I need the brain power of who I invested in freed up so that they can be strategic, they can be creative, they can. And we have to remove those repetitive tasks. So now there's a psychology that you show up to work and you have busy work to do. You're a little strategic, or you have strategic work to do, and then you have busy work, and then you unplug that busy work. It's kind of like sometimes the human mind can fool you into thinking that because I'm not doing that busy work, somehow I'm diminished in terms of my value to the business, or the mind starts to wonder when you take out consistent busy things that people think add value. So it sounds like, from the executive office, there needs to be a very strong directive that basically says we're giving these workers to you to remove these repetitive tasks so you can actually perform the way we need you to perform. So walk us through that. What would your advice be, Raji, going from like anxiety to possibility, removing the anxiety of needing to do that busy work, removing the anxiety of, oh my gosh, machines are replacing me, and kind of get that messaging that it's a change management exercise at the end of the day. It's change management 101. So then what advice could we give, C-levels down to director level or managers of how should they message this effectively so that the AI can have the impact that we believe it can have?
Yeah, so a lot of it, I would say, has to do with the individual. One of the books that comes to my mind is Carol has a book called The Mindset, which talks about the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, right? People who have the growth mindset will always look at how can I come up with new ways of doing things. Any problem comes in, they will solve it, right? Folks who have a fixed mindset will say, oh my goodness, I'm stuck here. What can I do? Right? The thing is, everyone can get into a growth mindset. It's a matter of how you were probably, scientifically it shows how you were trained childhood-wise, whether you are given all the possibilities or not, right? But the reality is, forget the childhood, where you are today, believe in yourself that you can create value. The power that you have, the ability that you have, as long as you are willing to adapt to the changes in the market, you will overcome all of these things. It's when you are afraid that says, my God, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, then you are becoming your own enemy.
So this is an opportunity for business owners, for anyone who manages teams that is looking into AI, to basically use this as an opportunity, even career-wise, to say, look, if I look at myself right now, I'm a fixed mindset. I need to break that. Then going through this AI exercise with digital AI workforce like Datascape has, we can come in and basically coach them up on how to get out of this status of stuck to a status of growth. And that way, we can actually, that's actually a very positive, impact that it have.
I mean, the way I look at it is, if you look at, since you started with the history of humankind, right, we have always learned to do things better and better and better. So we are at a point where whatever we did in the last 100 years, probably it's not going to be the same the next 100. Absolutely not going to be. And we are in that pivotal point. And we have the opportunity to be part of that.
Right.
Or the way I look at it is the universe doesn't care about what I think or what you think. It'll do the way it wants to do.
Right.
So it's our responsibility to adapt to that and move forward with it. So when you said that anxiety to possibility, it's exactly the thing that we got to have. That is, these AI and digital workers, instead of saying, my God, it's going to take my job, will say, what possibilities it's giving me that I can use it for my betterment, for betterment of the community, for the organization I work for.
Well, and I think it's super important for companies, leaders within these companies, to really put a positive mindset around this, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way it's going to be successful. Is, guys, let's make sure that let's understand this, how this can help you. We're here to help you get rid of the, repetitive tasks. We want you to be more, efficient and spend times on things that can help you grow. So I think it's internally the leaders have a lot to do with this. Whether
and Ryan, what's fascinating about what you're saying, going back to one of Raji's earlier points, is that the human being has to be in the right mindset in order to be able to be successful, in order to be able to really execute against the AI, in order to have these projects flourish. So when those articles come out that 95% fail, it's really human error, based upon our discussion.
You are absolutely right, Jason. So for the last, I would say 3 months, I've been playing with this vibe coding concept, right? Where people are saying, it'll replace all these, programmers. And by the way, AI will do stuff. Absolutely, absolutely not. Because as I'm working with it, right, what I'm finding is there's only so much that AI can do. You have to still guide this engine to do exactly what you want, right? Let's take a simple example where you have this, I got, let's say 500, 600 files that I have to manage in a project. The AI cannot go and look at all of the files. It immediately runs out of context, right? So now you have to tell, okay, what is the way in which you can use this smart slave worker to get your job done? And that's something only an experienced software developer and architect can do. Right. So that's an example where senior leadership may think saying that, okay, I can replace these developers and get things done. That's the reason why they may initially lay off a lot of people. Then they will realize, oh my God, I really need these people.
Right.
Right. It'll come back.
No, but Roger, what it sounds like also is that the tools that were released during the initial era of SaaS were pretty much monoliths, which was the one size fits all that you could ease into, and the tools kind of met the expectations of the time with a little bit more strength here and there with different platforms. But what it sounds like now is that these AIs are so powerful that it's almost like giving somebody a tool that's too powerful. So the ability to misuse, overuse, or even perverse the tool is definitely there. We as humans have to be very careful to kind of pull back and say, all right, what's the real need here? What's the real pain that I'm taking away from my staff member, employee, or executive's day so they can perform better versus, hey, do everything. It's AI.
Yeah. It's a matter of whether you have a compulsive leader or a conscious leader, right? And compulsive leader will make poor choices, and of course those employees in the organization will be affected by that. But I feel that will be, eventually people will figure out, hey, this is the right way to do it. There may be an initial change in the market, but eventually it'll come back.
It will. As we look ahead, and I think the one quote we talked about before the podcast was that dancing minds is no longer a tool. Like the dancing mind is now, because like the AI becomes a true thinking partner. And I think as we close out today, we have to realize that, the dancing mind means that you really can remove a lot of different limits, especially with ideation and especially with iteration. I think we were experiencing that yesterday, I think, with Google image effects and Whisk when we were going through some, internal, creative discussions we were having. And I think to close out our discussion today, talking about like to new horizons and the co-creation without the limits and the uncharted breakthroughs. It's actually much, if you look at every revolution that's kind of gone from like, the dawn of time. And even if you look at way back in Jerusalem, when the shop owners in the old city of Yerushalayim, created, sidewalks so that water would go into the center and go away so people could come and shop. You say to yourself, well, what the heck is the big deal? Well, you know what? 3,300 years ago, when you needed to go buy whatever, water was your barrier of entry to a market. So, like you said, Raji, the barriers and solutions or the challenges and solutions don't ever really change. It's really just how, the dancing mind just basically, adapts to them, throughout human history.
Yeah. So when you talked about dancing mind, right, really, the thought I had was, I look at AI and human being as kind of the dancing partners, right? That is, you got to make sure that there are certain things AI is good at, let it do. And there are certain things human beings are good at, let us do, right? And that dancing partnership is really what makes the next horizon of the workplace to be very different from where we are today.
Yeah, we're going to see this rise of hybrid teams, blending human judgment with machine precision, basically.
Yeah, almost like your Rivian, ingenuity, precision. Yeah,
that's right. I don't know, man. It's been in the shop for a week, so we'll see.
Well, but right, it's getting precisely tuned.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. On behalf of Raji Abraham, my name is Ryan Albrechtsen. My name is Jason Asher. Thank you very much for watching our podcast today. We'll have a couple of links in the comments below with a few thoughts that we've had today, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.